Good morning, Efrain. Good morning, Kevin. Okay, good morning, everybody. It's time already, so we're gonna begin. I'm not sure where the rest of the class is. Um, so this week we are continuing with our unit of man's story in God's story, and basically what we have been covering is the history aspect of Belizean studies. And we have been talking about different empires in this unit and how these empires rose and their transgression and how they fell or disappeared to some extent, and how their part in this storyline has impacted everybody that came after them. So now, in the previous weeks, we have been looking at the Americas and the Native American empires. And then now, last week, we started off with the idea of European colonization and what it is that these Europeans, their intentions were, or why it is that they decided to come and colonize the Americas. And throughout all of this process, we have been practicing our deep hope, and we have been reflecting on and through our activities learning about African cultural contributions, which we have covered already. And then now we're doing the second aspect of it, which is the European arrival into the Americas. And then now, in our biblical framework, we are still in the process of identifying the creation and the fall aspect. And in the creation, we're taking a look at all of these empires and how it is that they formed, how it is that they played a part in this story, starting from the African empires, moving to the American empires, and then including the European empires. And all of these empires, how they played a role with each other, and how the relationship between one another was created, and how that affected each other. And then when we looked at the fall, we relate that to the fall of each of these empires. And even though the African empire was only there for a short period of time, and we didn't really look at the details that was included in that aspect, but we saw how the Europeans' role did have a big impact on these African empires. And now we're gonna see how the Europeans have an impact on the Native American empires that that we have already talked about, which are the Olmecs, the Aztecs, the Incas, um, the Maya, and then we're gonna hear about the Taínos and the Kalinagos, which are more empires that were found in this section of the world, which is called the Americas. All right. So, and then our essential question is, where do we come from? Still talking about the idea of our ancestors and how their role affected who we are right now. So now the weeks for these objectives, and if you guys have taken a look at your activities, and I already saw that two persons have submitted the second activity. Um, and then our objectives are that we need to identify the three main European empires. So now we had several other empires that were colonizing at that time, but these are the three most successful ones. Um, sorry, it should be four of them: the French, the Spanish, the British, and the Dutch. So these four empires are the ones that we're going to be looking at for this week, and then explain the colonization of these European empires. And then we're going to be classifying the Americas, North America, Central America, and South America according to the European empires and who colonized each of these areas. So now for today's class, I want to quickly do an introductory activity, and we're gonna be doing this in the chat. So I am going to be asking the question, and I would like that all of you respond in the chat. So um, the first, let's take a look at the question. What are the 4 Gs of colonization? Last week, this is what we were talking about. What are the 4 Gs of colonization? The 4 Gs of colonization. In the chat, I would like you guys to respond. What are the 4 Gs of colonization? What are the 4 Gs of colonization? These are the 4 things that we talked about last week. They're not really the concepts, the areas, but this is like an acronym that 4 words that start with G that represent the 4 reasons, the 4 main reasons for colonization. Right? So let's see. The 4 Gs of colonization. Okay, I see God, gold, geography, glory. Gold, God, glory. Gold, God, glory, geography. Okay, very good, guys. Um, Thank you for sharing your responses, Daniel, Ephraim, Rushby, and Tristan. Very good. So now we are going to continue talking about the European colonization, but we want to talk about the colonies themselves. So last week we just spoke about the beginning of the European colonization. The colonization did not actually begin, but we talked about the reasons why did the European countries, these empires, decide that they want to do this colonization. So this week now we're gonna actually talk about the colonies themselves. So my first question is, does anybody know what a colony is? Like if they ask you, okay, this is a British colony, this is a Dutch colony, this is a French colony, what does that mean? What does the word colony um, say about that specific area? Anybody has any ideas? What is a colony? Okay, I see Angel has a definition. Okay, so I see two definitions. One says a country or area. Um, okay, a country or area under the full or partial political control of another country, typically a distant one, and occupied by settlers from that country. So, a colony is not a country. Let's have that clear. That section of the definition is not 100% correct. If you are a colony, you are not a country, right? A country means that you are already independent. You are separate from any other. It's like Belize. Belize was a British colony but got independent, so therefore now we are a country, right? A colony and a country are two different things. But it is an area, an area under the full or partial political control of another country, a group of people of a nationality, group where people live, a group of people of one nationality. It doesn't necessarily have to be of a nationality or of an ethnic group. But let's look at what a colony is. It says a colony is a land that is politically and economically controlled by a powerful parent or mother country. Um, and usually they would use the mother country, right? For example, British Honduras in the past, England was British Honduras mother country because we were a colony of that country. We are like a separate part. A colony is like a little part of a country that is far away or in a different area. Um, and what makes us a colony of another country is that this country controls us basically and defines our ways of living politically, meaning our government wise. And when somebody controls the government, they basically control everything that happens in this colony, and then controlling them economically, meaning that everything that gets imported and exported from that colony, all of the revenues are for the mother country or the parent country, right? So talking about Belize was British Honduras, and back in the day, when British Honduras was still a colony, um, logwood was one of the primary industries, um, where a lot of logwood would be cut in Belize, would be exported, and all of that revenue would be for England and not stay here in Belize in British Honduras, right? Now, when we talk about a colonist, a colonist is an immigrant who settles in a colony and remains loyal to their parent country. So, you have this colony, you have Belize. I'm sorry, British Honduras. The British colonized this area and defined it and called it British Honduras. So British Honduras is a colony of England. Now, England sent their Britain people, and they settled in British Honduras. And they started to live there. These persons are colonists because they came from the mother country. They came to the colony, they settled there, but they remained loyal to their parent country. So whatever England or the ruler, the queen at that time, the king at that time, whatever their ruling was, that was what the colonists in that colony would do. They would not retaliate. They were like, okay, this is the order that they sent. We're gonna follow this order. This is what they want the government to do. That is what we're gonna be doing. This is what they want the people to do. That is what we're going to be doing, and that is how the colony work. A colony is just a section, like a little section of the mother country that is in another area or somewhere else. Anybody has any questions so far? Is it clear? A colony, a colonist, so that we understand. So we have talked about the 4 Gs, the reasons, and then now what a colony is. Okay, good. So why do you think that, because if we take a look at the geography map, and we see you have England, you have Portugal, you have Spain, and you have France, and these were the four main European countries that were colonizing the Americas. Why did they need colonies? What were the reasons behind? Okay, the British, they have England, they have their king, they have their queen, but why were today's to some extent not satisfied? Because that is the primary reason. They weren't satisfied just in Spain, they weren't satisfied just with England, they weren't satisfied with just with Portugal, just with France, that they needed to have colonies. And there are the purposes of having a colonies. So England, the British, the Spaniards, the French, and the Dutch, They decided that they needed Portuguese and relating this back to our 4Gs because they wanted to increase the power of their parent country. These were four powerful empires, all of them with their unique properties, but all of them had, to some extent, the same level of power. But they wanted to be different. They wanted to have more power than the other ones. Spain wanted to be more powerful than England, France, and Portugal all together. And all of them had that same feeling, that same notion that they wanted. They wanted more power. They wanted to provide a source of raw material and goods. So, if we remember, when we were talking about the Olmecs and the Mayas, and then when we saw that the Spaniards came and they took back all of these goods, all of these things that they did not have in their mother country. They took back all of these things, and when they took them back there, they started to trade and to create new things. When they took these cacaos, they decided to make something else out of it. So they took all of these raw things, all of the fruits and all of the resources that we had here in America. They would take them back to Europe, and then they would produce something else out of it to provide a marketplace for the parent country. Now, what is this marketplace? The idea of having a market, here in Carlisle and in Jock, wherever you're from, you have a market. It is for you to purchase something. They are goods that are being sold, and other people purchase them. So now the idea of providing this marketplace just increase more revenue, where they would be getting goods from the Americas, taking it to their mother country, selling these things and providing revenue, which was basically free to them because they just took these things from the Americas, they took them back to where they were, and then they were selling it. So they got it for free and they were just basically selling it. And all of the revenue that they were making was almost completely profit, because the only thing that was, to some extent, their expense was the traveling from the Americas to Europe. And then the last thing was to provide a place for people to live. Europe's, I'm talking about these four empires. Spain had their own territory, England had their own territory, Portugal has its territory, and France has its territory. But because their population was increasing, they wanted it to spread, or they wanted to have more areas so that they could have other people living in different parts, but was still loyal to their mother country. So now, when we go back to the idea of a colonist, when the mother country would send the soldiers or people that were loyal to them, primarily men were chosen. The men would go, but the men would take their family as well after a certain period of time. So the men would go first, the men would settle, the men would create or build their homes or wherever it is that they would be living. And once they had settled down, then they would um, they would bring their wife, their children, or whatever family that they had to live with them in the colony. So these were the four purposes. This is why these four European empires wanted to have colonies. So now, which colonizer are we most familiar with? When you guys are in primary school, wherever it is that you're from, there is one colonizer that is always taught. Who is that colonizer?
The British.
Not, I don't want a European empire. I want one person. It is one person that we learn about in when you guys are in primary school in social studies. Um, One person that discovered the Americas, because that is how they portray this person. Who is this person?
Christopher Columbus.
Christopher Columbus. Very good. Very good, Tristan. I see you put it in the chat. Christopher Columbus. Now, from which empire did Christopher Columbus come from? Let me clarify that. Which empire did he represent when he was coming to colonize?
Spain.
Are we sure? Is it Spain? Why is it Spain? What hints in the history tell you that he came to represent Spain? What do you know about Christopher Columbus? Okay, let's do this. What little facts do you know about Christopher Columbus? Doesn't have to be about his person. Like, I don't want to know his age or who are his parents. I don't want to know those things. What do you know about the Christopher Columbus story? What were you taught about Christopher Columbus? That he was born in Italy, okay, and he sailed the oceans in 1942. Okay, so now there is a question. Christopher Columbus is Italian. He's from the French colony, so why did he represent the Spanish colony when he was colonizing? Columbus was likely not the first European to cross the Atlantic Ocean. Three countries refused. The Nina and Pinta were not actually names of the two of the three ships. He was a Christian. Okay, so maybe you do not recall all of the details, but very good. Let me see. Very good, Daniel, for sharing. He was Italian. He was born in Italy. That was the first question, right? He's Italian, so why did he represent Spain when he was colonizing? And then Angel says that three countries refused Columbus's voyages. So I will be showing you guys a short video um, that talks about Christopher Columbus. It's like a very cartoonish video, and then at the end of the session today, I'm gonna be showing you another one. It's talking about the same idea of Christopher Columbus, but with a little bit more detail than the first one that I'm gonna be showing you right now. So let me know if you can hear it, okay?
Children in the United States learned that Christopher Columbus discovered America in 1492. But since there were already millions of people living on the American continents when he arrived, what is Columbus's real importance in history? This video will show what really happened during his voyages between two worlds and how they helped shape the world we know today. In 1451, Columbus was born in the Republic of Genoa. There he began his sailing career, but in 1477 he was hired as a merchant mariner for King John II of Portugal. Portugal was gaining power on the seas, colonizing Atlantic islands and establishing trade with African kingdoms. By the 1480s, they found out the Indian Ocean was on the other side of Africa. This discovery gave them a fast and cheap trade route to the rich goods of Asia. During Portugal's rise in power, a group of European scholars thought the Earth was smaller than what was previously believed. This meant one could reach Asia by sailing west. Because of the newly invented printing press, Columbus read about these recent theories and was enthralled with the idea of sailing west for riches. He tried to get funding for an expedition from Portugal, but King John didn't believe in the small Earth theory. He then tried in France, England, and Spain with no luck until 1492 when the Spanish sovereigns, Ferdinand and Isabella, decided to help fund 3 ships for a voyage. They saw Columbus as a means to compete against Portugal's success. The Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria set sail on August 3, 1492. After a stop on Gran Canary, the rest of the trip took 5 weeks. On October 12th, land was spotted. It was an island, and at dawn Columbus went ashore. Because he believed in the small Earth theory, Columbus thought he was near Japan. He called the natives of this island Indians because India was what many Europeans called Asia at the time, but the natives were really called the Taino. Trade began between the two parties, but it was clear that the Taino did not possess the fabled riches of East Asia. However, some of them wore gold as jewelry. Columbus was hungry for gold to bring back to Spain. He wandered around searching for a large amount of gold until the Santa Maria crashed into a reef on Hispaniola. Columbus left 39 men at the site to build a colony. He promised he would return for them and sailed back to Spain. When he arrived in Europe, Columbus was famous. He had sailed into the unknown and returned to tell the tale. He brought back many things to show the Spanish king and queen, including Taínos he had kidnapped. But he did not bring enough gold, so Ferdinand and Isabella equipped Columbus with 17 ships for a second voyage, and named him governor of all the lands he discovered. Columbus was an excellent sailor. He found his way back to Hispaniola using his own keen navigation skills, and kept the coordinates of his route a secret. When the fleet arrived at Hispaniola, they found out that the 39 men who were left there to build a colony had been killed by a local chief. They also found out the same chief had lots of gold on his land. Columbus led a crew into his territory and found a gold quarry. The chief was angered by the arrogance of these invaders, and soon fighting broke out. To intimidate the chief, Columbus captured 3 of his captains and beheaded them in public. This enraged the Taínos and disturbed many of the Spanish. To make things worse, there was soon no gold left to mine. Columbus sent letters back to Spain on a ship and exaggerated the amount of gold that was found. To produce more profit for the king and queen, Columbus suggested starting a slave trade. Without waiting for a response, he seized over 500 natives and sent them to Spain. Most of the remaining natives fought against this injustice, so Columbus unleashed terror on them. Once defeated, they were forced to pay tributes of gold to the Spanish. It was worse than slavery. People who didn't find enough were punished brutally. Forced to constantly look for gold, the Taino could not farm their lands anymore. Many escaped into the hills, only to be hunted down. During the first few years of the tribute system, 50,000 natives died. Columbus's brutal command made him enemies in the colony as well as in Europe. In 1496, he sailed for Spain to defend his actions to Ferdinand and Isabella. He left his brother Bartolomeo in charge of the colony until he returned. King and Queen listened to his defense and allowed him to return to Hispaniola in 1498. By now, the colony was a disaster. Bartolomeo was just as bad at governing as his brother was, if not worse. A rebellion had begun among the Spanish, and soon the king and queen sent a royal investigator to assess the situation. He put the Columbus brothers on trial. They were found guilty of numerous crimes against both the Spanish and the natives. The brothers were arrested and sent back to Spain. Christopher Columbus was no longer in charge of the New World. Now old and humbled, he was allowed one last voyage across the ocean, but he was not permitted to return to Hispaniola. He explored the Caribbean for 2 years before sailing back to Spain, where he died in 1506. We have learned that Columbus was ambitious, intelligent, and courageous, but he was no hero. His exploits in the colony were disasters for the native inhabitants, and their way of life was destroyed by his actions as governor. But his efforts led Europe to dominate the world through colonization and the expansion of kingdoms into empires. If Columbus did not succeed, someone else would have. But since his journey was the first to establish a link between the old world and the new, his name is remembered. Children in the United
Okay, so in this video, the history went quite a little bit fast. Talked about a lot of things that happened. Now, before I even go ahead and talk about Spain, um, I want to do a clarification with the Taínos and the Kalinagos. I know that those were empires, and they are empires that are not included in the content for Belizean studies, but are included in the content for Caribbean history. Um, when we talk about the empires, talking about the Native American empires and the ones that we talked about the empires that were found in Central America, and those empires were the Olmecs, the Mayas, the Incas, and the Aztecs. And some of these empires were also found a little bit down more in Southern America. We did not talk really about the ones that were found in North America or even more down in Southern America, or we didn't talk about the empires that were in the Caribbean. And the Taínos and the Kalinagos were the two Native American um, that were found in the Caribbean. The Kalinagos were the ones that inhabited the Lesser Antilles, meaning the small little islands. So, talking about Trinidad and Tobago, St. Vincent, St. Louis, all of these small little islands that are more eastward. And then the Taínos inhabited the Greater Antilles, which is like Cuba, Jamaica, Hispaniola, Dominican Republic, all of these bigger islands that are found in the Caribbean. And their way of living and their cultural lifestyle, the Taínos were more calm. They were more calm people that were more into agriculture. They had a very sophisticated way of living. They did not believe in fighting or in wars or these ideas. And then the Kalinagos were more aggressive people. Um, they hunted a lot. They did a lot of ate a lot of meat in their diets, and some people and historians even believe that at some point they think that they have evidence that the Kalinagos were cannibals, meaning that they ate people at some point. But all we know and we have evidence of is that the Kalinagos, the biggest well, what we know that they ate then were small dogs, like for example chihuahuas. They would fatten up chihuahuas and then they would eat chihuahuas, and that is historically shown, where we have evidence of that. But there are some historians that believe that they were cannibals, and they would and because the Kalinagas were more aggressive and the Tainos were more passive, when the Kalinagas would go and raid Taino villages, then more, that idea of one is more inclined to this aggressive attitude, and they more than likely win these battles. And the Kalinagos would almost all the time win these battles between the Tainos and the Kalinagos. Um, so now, if we take a look at what was mentioned in the video, where Christopher Columbus landed in Hispaniola and he found Tainos there, the idea of where the Tainos killed 39 men is something very alarming to some point, because the Tainos are not that kind of people. So there is something that happened there. We're gonna see that in the second videos that was not mentioned in this one. Something happened while Christopher Columbus left these men that um caused and enraged the Taino people to go ahead and commit this gruesome act. So let's see. So yes, Angel. The La Nina, La Pinta, and Santa Maria are names that are taught to modern day, through modern day history. If we take a look at the actual history, where you have Christopher Columbus actual scrolls where he wrote on all of these, and the history of Spain, they do provide other names for these ships. um but in the content and in the curriculum that is taught and that has been passed on, then these are the names that are provided for us to learn, not necessarily meaning that these were the original names given to them, but these are easier names that are easier for, I think, students to understand the concept that is behind them. But these are the names that are provided to them through modern day history. So now we're gonna take a look at Spain takes the lead. So now, what does that mean? What does Spain takes the lead mean? Spain was the first one to go ahead and start the colonization process. The discovery of the New World inspired many European nations to begin to explore and conquer the Americas. So, talking about Christopher Columbus and him being the first one to actually do these voyages and to discover the Americas, even though he didn't really know that he was in the Americas. And when this news was spread through Europe, it enticed Britain, France, and the Portuguese to go ahead and do the same thing. Right? The main reasons, and when you guys talk Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand, their main reasons was that they wanted they wanted more gold, they wanted more riches, they wanted more glory. And because Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand were in Spain, then they also had this strong Roman Catholic belief also. And they had these high priests that would encourage them to um to increase the amount of conversions to the Roman Catholic religion. Spanish explorers were called conquistadors, so we wouldn't say the explorer Christopher Columbus or the colonizer Christopher Columbus. It's El Conquistador, Christopher Columbus, right? Because they were called conquistador, and Spain they speak Spanish, so their history was also written in Spanish. Um, so now when we go ahead, and if you guys have taken a look at what is uploaded in Google Classroom, in the content section there is a map of North America, Central America, and South America. And if you guys have taken a look at that, and we will be looking at it next class, most of the areas that um, were colonized by Spain. So Spain has the largest, or was the group that geographically has the largest, um, or had the largest amount of colonies back then. The desire for glory and fame led Spain to build this empire in the New World, making Spain the most powerful country in the world back then. Because taking a look at North America, Central America, South America, all of the countries that speak Spanish right now were originally colonies of Spain. And just looking at Central America, all of Central America, except for Belize, was colonized by Spain. You go more down into South America, you have Chile. Chile is a large area in South America that was colonized by Spain. And all of these areas, when you put them geographically together, Spain had the most areas colonized, which made them more powerful because they had where to get more resources from. The conquistadors were ruthless in their exploration of the New World. And as we saw with the governing of Christopher Columbus in this video, the Native Americans were severely punished. If they were not mining for gold, they were taken back as slaves. And of course, slaves that are taken into another country. And we know a little bit about the African slavery because I know that you guys are taught that in primary school. Um, it is very, 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 it's disgraceful to see how human beings could treat other human beings in this manner and do these things to them. And just the idea of taking people from where they are, stealing them and taking them to another country, selling them so that they could endure hard labor, is a ruthless act on behalf of all of the conquistadors. And even the way how they would treat their slaves in the colonies, because once they colonized there, they were the ones that ruled, be it the Mayas, the Incas, the Tainos, the Kalenagos, whoever were living in that specific area automatically became slaves. They were not like, okay, let's make a treaty and the Maya still lives here and the Spanish still lives here and we're gonna be working together. That did not happen. The conquistadors were there. The conquistadors were there to take over. They slaughtered hundreds of thousands of native people and robbed them of their gold, their jewels, and destroyed their civilization. So now, how many, if you guys were paying attention to the video, how many Native Americans were killed in Hispaniola over that time of the governing of Christopher Columbus and his brothers?
50,000.
50,000. Very good. And that is just in Hispaniola. And Hispaniola is a small island. Well, relatively small. It's in the Greater Antilles. But it's an island compared to a country, for example, like Mexico, Guatemala, Panama, which are very larger countries compared to Hispaniola. So you can imagine the ratio there, where you have 50,000 natives being killed in this time, and that included men, women, children. Did not matter to these conquistadors. They were just there to get what they wanted, and whoever was in the way had to pay the price. And as a result of all of these things that were happening because of the greediness of these European empires, ships loaded with riches sailed back to Spain carrying more gold, more jewels, and stories than people could imagine, economically making Spain the richest country in the world. But when they say, okay, Spain was the richest country in the world, they don't really say, okay, we are the richest country in the world because, okay, we had to kill 50,000 people in this country or in this colony, and then we got this from that. That was the end product. I got richer because I killed so many people. That's not the way how the story is told. And we have all of these underlying issues, and as we move on with the other European empires, we're gonna be realizing how much people had to suffer. What were the things that had to be done for the colonization process to occur, for European colonization to occur? So now, along with the conquistadors, there were Spanish missionaries and priests that arrived to convert native population to Catholicism. Now, the idea of having slaves was a way of making money, where they would be getting these people that look healthy, like young women and young men. They would have these slaves, they would take them back to Spain, and then they would sell them. But because religion was such a big thing back then, the Roman Catholic religion was such a big idea back then, these slaves had to be converted. So when the conquistadors would come, they would bring missionaries and they would bring priests with them, and they would forcibly convert them to the religion that they were, so that when they would go back, would take these slaves back to Europe, it would be easier to sell them. Because what's better than having a Catholic slave in your home? Somebody that knows how to comport themselves, somebody that knows the way of living of a Catholic um, believer, and is your slave. It was good business to convert them to this Catholicism or to this process. Some natives peacefully accepted Catholicism because they knew the consequences, right? However, many rejected the message of the missionaries and fought violently against them. Now, having this idea in mind, you had to be very, very brave to stand up against the missionaries and the priests and say, I am not going to convert myself. I am not going to stop believing in my gods, because we know the Native Americans had so many gods. To believe in one God and to believe in your Roman Catholic religion, or whatever it is that you want me to believe. And there were some of the Tainos, some of the Kalinagas, and these Native Americans that stood up and said what they had to say and showed that they are not going to change. And this is where the consequence part came in, because the ones that peacefully converted, okay, I accept it, I know that I don't have another choice, because if I say no, this is what is going to happen to me. So some of them peacefully said, okay, let's do it, I'm gonna convert myself. Then the slavery part started after that. And then you'd have the ones that said, I am not going to convert myself. And that in a unique partnership, some missionaries and priests allowed the conquistadors to slaughter peaceful tribes who were unwilling to convert to Christianity. So now you have the priests and you have the missionaries, the ones that represent the church in this colony, saying, okay, conquistador, you can go ahead and kill these people because they're not going to change to Catholicism. So might as well kill them because I can't do anything with them. And the way that it is presented, that they slaughtered, and slaughter means, okay, I'm just gonna butcher you up and that's it, because you don't want to be Catholic, you don't want to believe in our religion, and there is no use for you if you don't want to believe in our religion, convert to Christianity. And this is why the number of dead Native Americans just skyrocketed, because it's not easy for someone that has lived and grew up in a religion to just convert to one after you have seen that your tribe has been raided, your people have been killed, you are separated from your family, you know what is waiting for you, are going to be a slave, and they just want you to peacefully accept, okay, I accept your God, I want to be a Christian. It's not easy. And because it's not easy, they did not accept it, and because they did not accept it, they were slaughtered by the conquistadors as orders of missionaries and priests. And then you have the introduction of the Spanish military and missionaries led to the gradual collapse of traditional Native American culture and religion. And that's why we don't know a lot about these. We wish that we could know more about the Olmecs and the Mayas, the Incas and the Aztecs, because what we know is not enough because of all of this that has happened. And I know that it's time already, 10:35. So let me, we're not gonna watch the video. The video is there. Your assignment on myth busting. It is to create a poster. I do have info. I have it here in the PowerPoint. You guys can go ahead and view it. You guys are to create one poster. The poster can be made electronically or handmade. It has to have pictures, phrases, quotes, small notes of information. Please don't copy and paste from the internet an entire website, entire paragraph. Small little phrases and sentences, and you put that there in your poster that shows one way of modern day slavery. And you have to include a slogan, and I have a slogan there for you guys. Um, I'm not sure if I uploaded the presentation. I will check. If not, I will be uploading it after my class right now. And then I have examples of modern day slavery. These are 7 examples. If you have another example of modern day slavery, go ahead and include that one if you want to talk about that one. But these are examples of modern day slavery. What is your poster supposed to be showing? Your poster is supposed to be informative, showing other people this is what slavery looks like today. It does not look like the slavery that the Spanish conquistador, what Christopher Columbus created. It's not that same kind of slavery. It is this slavery today now. So if you guys want to talk about forced child labor, where you have, for example, in India, this is something very popular, where you have small children working in factories because they have small little hands, they can do the work that is needed. And you want to talk about that, you make your poster on that, and that is what your poster is going to be showing, the informative aspect of modern day slavery. So anybody has any questions?
No, miss, no.
Okay guys, I'm sorry I took 2 minutes of your time, but you guys are free to leave. Enjoy the rest of the day, and I will see you guys on Thursday.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye, miss.
Bye.
Bye, miss. Have a good day.
Thank you, Angel. Thank you guys. Goodbye.
Bye, miss.
Bye.
Bye, miss.
Goodbye.
Bye, miss.
Bye.